Peace, love, and law. I want to take a few minutes to talk about natural law. I'm going to read from a book called Introduction to Law. Actually, it's called Business Law, Commercial Law, but this is a section on Introduction to Law. And it has a very interesting thing to say about natural law. It says here, natural law is based upon the assumption that all civilized persons of normal conscience throughout the world can agree that the first principle of human behavior is to do good and to avoid evil. So listen to this, right? So natural law is based upon the assumption that all civilized persons of normal conscience, not abnormal conscience, not uncivilized persons, but of normal conscience throughout the world, can agree, listen to that agreement, that the first principle, they're talking about principles, of human behavior is to do good and to avoid evil. So obviously, if ever we are doing anything that appears to be evil, it goes contrary to the assumption, and therefore will not fall under natural law. And that is why when we go to court, and you see we start arguing, right? They say, what are your arguments? What are you being charged with? What are you arguing? And basically you're saying guilty or not guilty. Both of them imply argument. Both to say, I'm not guilty. Why don't you say I'm not innocent? I'm just innocent. Why don't you say I'm innocent? You say I'm not guilty. That implies guilt. And therefore, whenever it implies that the human behavior is evil, or it implies that the human behavior seems like there's some evil intent, obviously that is contrary to natural law, right? So natural law recognizes that every man and woman is a being invested with human dignity, in whom reside basic rights, such as the right to exercise, to the right of existence of life, the right to personal freedom, the right to the pursuit of happiness, the right to keep one's body whole, the right to private ownership of material goods, the right to marry according to one's choice, and to raise a family which will be assured of the liberties due to it, and the right of association. You can associate yourself with anybody you want. It's just that you have the right. It's a natural law. So all these rights that were mentioned are inseparable from every person. So it's not only I have that right, you have that right. Not only me and you have the right, they have that right. So when we go out in public has rights, right? So I believe there's a doctrine of public rights. And therefore, one who wants to be a sovereign must be aware of this, because a sovereign will consider that. Will not consider that the public has no rights. The public has rights, and the one who regulates the public needs the authority to assure that there's a protection of those rights. So the relationship that the people have with, let's say, the public authorities, right? That relationship, in reality, it should be an equitable relationship in where the people are giving the fruits of their labor, or rights to the fruits of their labor, or rights and freedoms, and they're giving it all to one body, which is a sovereign body called a nation. I know they call it a state, but called a nation. And then this nation, as one, being a sovereign nation, is recognized by other sovereign nations, right? Because there's all these bodies of people that, again, are practicing their right to associate, right of association. They're associating themselves as one culture, one nation. And one of the things that I hear a lot is people talk about common law being, again, the God's law. I don't know about that, because the more you learn about common law, you'll find that people use common law to do a lot of shady, dirty, nasty, horrid things. Common law is very rigid. What had to be put in place, what the people then looked for, was equity, something that's fair, what's just. If common law was God's law, well, it wouldn't have needed equity. And equity is basically derived from civil Roman law, and it was used a lot by the kings. What do you call him? He was the king's confidant, the king's clerk. He held the king's seal. This was an ecclesiastic priest, would always be the one that would remind the king of what it means to hold the title of king, you know. And there's many things that the king was useful for. And this was because, think about it, in a nation maybe that is being overrun by a lot of, let's say, people migrating into the nation, right? Because there's probably war in some country, and now they're coming into your nation. And many of these people are not good people. And now they start to rob and pillage, right? And kill or steal. So what people would do, they would give up their properties over to the king and ask the king for protection in exchange for their property. And the king would then provide that protection, because the king has an army, right? The king has power because he has an army. So the people would subscribe to the authority of the king, because of so many people that would enter their nations or their land and do very shady things, very evil deeds. These were ungodly people, obviously, because if they were of godly practice, they wouldn't do such shady things, right? So that's where the legal system comes in. And if you look at the definition of legal in one of those dictionaries, I believe it was the 1891 dictionary. Which one was it? But it was it that? I have it somewhere. I remember running across the definition of legal, where it says legal means the undoing of God's law. So, and this is what governs the commercial world, the fictitious world. Because the commercial world is fake. It's not real. In the real world, nobody owns anything. You can't. How could you own something? Nothing here belongs to anybody, any one of us. And nobody's taking it when they leave, when they die. So everything of this world is of this world, of the owner of this world, of the grand creator of this world. Ain't nobody own shit. But in the world of fiction, there's a lot of owners. There's ownership, right? There's beneficial owners and all that. It's all fiction, though. Now, when it comes to beneficiaries, though, that still falls under trust law. Now, the thing with trust law is that it requires agreements, it requires contracts, and that's where common law gives anybody the right to contract. It's illegal and unlawful to force somebody to be a slave, but it's completely legal for anyone to voluntarily be a slave. It's up to them. They want to consent to that. It's legal. That would be in the world of fiction, though, in the world of commerce. So this is just a few minutes of natural law, a little bit of common law. I'll take out another video soon talking a little bit more about this, especially about common law. Anyway, peace, love.